Unveiled in
You're coming out this side, Mum.
and it's talking about the use of Marconi wireless radio technology. So, well, all things that we say, we'll say because of that. Designed, invented, built in Chelmsford.
Career now. So it's because, let me get this straight, it's because the wireless operators on the Titanic were Marconi operators. And that's why it's
The equipment is from
Marconi wasn't there on the boat, no. Okay, well,
both of them.
go to the bar, we're closer. I can get it, not in America. We like this good. Should be like 2 feet, no, 4 feet of personal space.
There is no concept of personal space in a British city.
Well, and it's true of somebody lost a pacifier. It's true in Asian cities too, because they say like someone only have like a 12-inch personal space is enough.
Yep.
You can do if you want. Okay. I can give you the introduction.
We've got to go have a drink. Okay, but we got an introduction to do.
On the ancient route to the east coast, with a Roman bridge, which was later then a ford. The settlement ceased to exist by the 5th century, and the main route was diverted via Writtle, which is a town just north of it. Which by the late Saxon period, so that's what the 1000s, had become a royal manor. The original line of the London-Colchester Road was restored in 1101, when new bridges were constructed over the Cam and Chelmer rivers. In 1199, Chelmsford became a new town when William, Bishop of London, was granted a royal charter to hold a market on his manor to the north of the Cam, so we'll see that site later. Beer and wine would have been drunk here throughout this time, and the establishment of the assizes in 1218 brought trade and business. There's also a small hamlet by this date on Morsham Street, which you'll see later, and the original town plan can still be detected in the town centre layout. It may be more clearly seen in a beautiful Walker map of 1591, which is kept in their Essex Record Office, which also recorded many fair inns. After the breakup of the monastic landholdings by Henry VIII, at the dissolution of the monasteries, both the Manor of Morsham and the Manor of Chelmsford were acquired by Thomas Mildmay. That's an important name, we'll probably come back to that later.
Thomas, what again?
Mildmay.
I know.
In 1563. The improved transportation provided by the Chelmsford and Blackwater navigation, so there's a couple of rivers, and basically they built some canals connecting them. When it opened in 1797, gave a boost to the traditional agricultural industries of Chelmsford. However, it was not until 1839, when the Mildmay estate land began to be sold off, that the town began to expand significantly. Land was released which enabled the construction to take place both of the railway line and the new London Road. The existence of these in turn encouraged new industrial development, along with the building of houses for both workers and the growing middle class in sites beyond the old town. It was a slow process at first, but became more rapid toward the 20th century. In this time, Chelmsford came to be served by 5 principal breweries: Baddow, Writtle, Ridley's of Hertford End, Wells and Perry, and Gray's. In the last 30 years, Chelmsford has seen many major changes, culminating in its designation as a city in 2012. The population continues to increase rapidly, and a new housing estate is built on various sites identified for the Chelmsford City Local Development Plan. This includes a residential development on brownfield land, such as the former gasworks site, and homes on new greenfield sites, such as Chelmsford North. Much of the population now commutes to work elsewhere. Manufacturing industry has declined, while ritual and service industries have increased. Names are ritual, and the city is now home to one of the campuses of Anglia Ruskin University. Now, thinking of the station, so Chelmsford Station was opened in 1843 by the Eastern Counties Railway, and originally had an island platform arrangement, so that's platform down the middle with the tracks on either side, with stairs up to the platform from Duke Street between 2 bridges and the timber station buildings. In 1856, the station was converted to the side platform arrangement with 4 tracks in between and a new brick station buildings provided on both platforms. In 1899, the platforms were widened and the tracks reduced to 2, the station buildings being enlarged. As part of the development, a new signal box was provided, built on a very tall brick base. The signal box is no longer in use, but still survives. And when you leave,
I took a picture of
the
that.
wooden building,
Oh,
that's it,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Sorry? That awful thing that was on.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. We thought it was interesting because everything else looked new and modern and that looked old.
And in 1988, the outside buildings were demolished and a new entrance was constructed where they just was. And then we see the mural that we just seen, and now we're just talking about the clowns. The pub we're in was built in 1769 and has been calling itself the Railway Hotel since 1842, since before the railway arrived. So what this tour is it's 3 different walking tours merged into one. So one of them's an industrial history of Chelmsford. So that's looking at some of the stuff from the last 150 years. There's a general history tour of Chelmsford, which sort of touches on bits and bobs here and there throughout time. And also a history of all of the pubs in Chelmsford. So the tour is about 2 miles. There'll be pubs and stuff along the way which we can stop in, we don't need to stop in them all. There's one that I will say we definitely should stop in because there's a lot for me to read out about a building that's opposite. But as I say, we can go to them as we come to them. If you want to stop in them, we can, don't need to. Lunch-wise, I suggest there's a few places we can go. There's a tapas restaurant that's very good, which Kath and I will recommend, but it might be busy, it might not be, I don't know.
Very good sangria.
So I think something to remember, with Chelmsford being in the middle between London and Colchester, this would have been a major stopping outpost. So before the trains arrived, if you were travelling to Colchester, you'd have had to have stopped here overnight. So, as I said, we'll come to this later, but all of Chelmsford before the trains came was pubs and taverns and inns, like that was its industry.
Shall I show you?
Ivory.
Yeah.
It was service industry.
There's 18 clear arches plus 5 over Parkway, which is the main road. It's a monument to Victorian industry. It's a direct link with that day in March 1843, when, after many delays, the first train ran over the viaduct from Brentwood to Colchester, opening the line officially from London through to Chelmsford and to Colchester. Liverpool Street Station was not built until 1875, so the trains ran into Shoreditch Station, which is when you get into Liverpool Street, where you see, just before you do, and you see like the ancient remnants of an old train station. That's that.
Okay.
Oh, I always wondered what that was.
Further down near our flat, there are ponds on either side of the viaduct, and that's where clay was dug out by gangs of navvies in the winter of 1842. And they were the last people to use that clay, but they used it to make bricks. And there were brickworks in Chelmsford, not far from it. There's also a tramway that ran around there and into the factory that was on the estate where Catherine and I live. And since the early days of the trains, we've gone from steam trains to diesel trains, and the carriages have gone from 4-wheelers to upholstered 8-wheel saloons, as the tour says. Importantly, the railway helped local industries such as the London Road Ironworks, which we'll see later. But significant industry did not come for another 30 years, till Crompton and Co. came later. It must be remembered, however, that good communication with London was a major factor in attracting big industrialists here, and while the Christie family are already here, the railway would have aided their activity as it helped the existing agricultural industries and brewers. So agriculture, industry and taverns and brewing was Chelmsford's main stuff up until the railway.
Explains why it's such a busy pub.
Free house. So the difference between a free house and not a free house. A normal pub is simply owned by the breweries.
Right.
And they only sell the beers of that brewery.
Oh, okay. Oh,
While free houses sell the beers of any brewery. They
whatever ones they want to, and
well, this one doesn't start like in front of it too. But what this place does is they sell beers from all around, like rare stuff, unusual stuff, something that we've heard of, microbreweries.
craft brew. That's what Brit likes.
Thinking about friends, we always visiting different people.
We saw a place you guys would love for games and things, but it was in the O2, so it's expensive. Oh, it was so much fun. You know what? We never did take Richard out for a drink. We owe him.
I'll leave you,
Right,
I'll leave you
he's-
some money and you can take
He,
him out
he,
for
he
it.
will not be bereft of opportunities to drink, I assure you.
So this is New London Road. And by the will of Thomas Mildmay, who you may remember a minute ago got it all during the dissolution of the monasteries. He was Lord of the Manor of the area. He died in 1566, and by his will, when he died, many acres of the land were given to his eldest sons and their male heirs. And this effectively prevented the sale of the family estate, and it wasn't until an Act of Parliament in 1833 that they were finally able to sell the land. Firstly to the Eastern Counties Railway, where they built the train tracks in 1843, but it also meant that they could sell the land that became this road, which goes all the way about 2-3 miles long. And this became the New London Road, with Morsham Street, which I'll go to in a minute, being the Old London Road. The main sale took place in 1839, with much of the land being acquired by the Chelmsford Company, which is a group of 5 gentlemen with strong non-conformist convictions and business and family ties. There was solicitor John Copland, brewer William Collingswell, banker Thomas Greenwood, Copland's son Edward, and an architect called James Fenton. They acquired sufficient land to build a wide, tree-lined road with high standards to attract many of Chelmsford's leading families. So this is this road here. It was one of the town's first planned residential areas, offering mixed terrace, semi-detached and detached houses of good standards, built of white brick and stone and concrete. And this is the Ivory Peg behind us, which is named after an archaeological find on the site. And we'll come in a minute to, let's start walking, to Iron Bridge. And this particular bridge was built in 1890, after the original 1840 bridge, so built right after the land was sold, or bought, was swept away in floods in August 1888. Flooding was common in Chelmsford until a flood relief scheme was built in 1969. So this here is the Chelmsford Institute, well, a facade of what's left of the Chelmsford Institute. So the building was originally built in 1841 at a cost of £2,500, and it housed the Literary Mechanics Institute, which was founded in 1833, and they moved into that building just after it was built. And after 10 years, it had 827 members. The rest of the building, which had a 650 capacity theatre, was demolished in 1975. It had a reading room and hosted arts classes, music classes, language classes, a discussion group and fortnightly lectures, and a library of thousands of books. But the institute began to decline in the 1870s and closed in 1899. From 1899 until 1975, the Chelmsford Museum, was housed in this building. And on this side was what was before this was Alders, which is an independent department store. And before that, on this site, was a site of a large congregational church built in 1840 by John Fenton, one of the people who bought all this land. And it had 2,000 worshippers and cost £3,500 to build. But was demolished in 1971, and they moved to the site of where the URC church and the congregational church is down the road. And if we see in a moment, the shops here and here and here are sort of exemplar of what Chelmsford would have looked like in sort of the 1840s, 1850s.
Maybe a little bit older?
I think it all would have been about the same time, so this would have been when the Mildmay estate was sold off. All of this would have been built in about 1840, give or take a couple of years. So just like that church that was here, all built, give or take, 1840. Okay.
No, the white ones.
Well, the former offices of the Chelmsford Rural District Council. The building was built in 1938, so that's very recent. The rural districts were abolished in 1974, and this one merged with the Chelmsford Borough District to form the new district. This is very characteristic of that era of building. It's like almost all of the schools in the country are like that. It's all the hospitals are built like that. Just sort of that 1920s, 1930s sort of.
It was brick, but then they put the facade over the top, the plaster over it.
You know, like Puritans and stuff.
Yeah.
They were part of the Church of England until what they call the Great Expulsion, which I think was in the late 1700s, where all of the vicars and priests were made to sign a declaration saying that they're sensitive to all the bishops.
Oh.
And that's what they didn't perform until.
Oh, okay. That's what I was in mind.
So that is the origins of Baptist, Congregationalists, sort of Methodists, that's a little bit later, sort of Quakers, that's a little bit before. But when they say non-conformist, that's...
The religion.
Is the Ebenezer Strict Baptist Chapel. So that was also built by James Fenton, just the same chap who built the Congregationalist church that was there. This was built in 1848, so a little bit later. A schoolroom was added in 1878, and it was flooded in 1888 and 1947.
Wow.
But this building here was the Chelmsford and Essex Hospital, opened by the Countess of Warwick in 1883. And notice above the door where it says Infirmary and Dispensary.
Yep.
And the Essex Arms above the windows on the, so that's the free, yeah. So the Chelmsford Free Dispensary for the Poor was established in 1818, but by 1880 it had moved to here. As you can see now, it's a mental health.
Oh, that's what CM.
Community Mental Health Trust.
This is where I'd be.
She says, why is he playing cricket?
Because he wants to.
I mean, you can see the cricket.
Yeah. Not just.
Scaring the Americans. I need to film them on the screen.
So this is Laurel Grove, which now, the building behind it, which now houses the Chelmsford Club, founded in 1844. The club moved to the house in 1938. The buildings in the garden of the house, Fenton, who again designed lots of this stuff, he came as a surveyor, an engineer to the Chelmsford Board of Health, and designed the first sewers for Chelmsford and Molsham, completed in 1854. He built Laurel Grove, the house, for his own occupation between 1845 through 8.
And Josh knows that I'm getting older, and I want to live in this little one right here on the corner. He's going to buy that. They all have plaques on them. Am I allowed to look at them?
I mean, the plaque on the place itself just says what I've just said. And now, we turn back behind us, when I said, note the scale of all of this. So this was the site of the London Road Ironworks. So the whole opposite side of the road, so all of this was part of the once flourishing iron foundry, which made agricultural implements and metalworks. The business was taken over in 1848 by Richard Coleman, an experienced ironmaster, who expanded it notably. He won prizes at the Crystal Palace exhibition of 1851 and elsewhere, mainly for a very successful horse-drawn cultivator, of which ironworks made 25,000 of by 1890. After Coleman died in 1866, his son and partner ran the business as Coleman and Morton, and they made the most ironworks in Essex. The name may still be seen on some of the manhole covers in the Chelmsford area, so have a look out as we walk around. Coleman and Morton also made steam ploughing tackle in 1862 that was patented by Yarrow and Holditch. It was an arrangement of cables and anchor pulleys that enabled a single steam traction engine fitted with 2 winding drums to pull tow ploughs across the field, whereas the best standard system needed 2 ploughing engines. After early success, including in export business, customers in the end showed a preference for the standard scheme, with an engine at each side of the field and a two-way balanced plough being pulled to and fro between them. All these ploughing sets were very expensive, so that even before the Great Farming Depression, the farmers hired them rather than buying them. The contractor who supplied and worked them were not so concerned about the economies of saving one engine as they operated at a very large scale. Though Coleman and Morton had been a prosperous business up to 1885, with many employees and even a form of welfare, the Great Agricultural Depression of 75 through 99 drove this company and many other associated with agriculture into grave difficulties. By 1907, all was over for the Colemans. No sign remains of the ironworks anymore. However, they introduced to the town the idea of primitive quantity production, a skilled industrial workforce, which is important, and products manufactured for export. In 1910, this site was split up, and one large building was converted into a roller skating rink and survived until 1939, after which the building was used by the Marconi Company for building and testing radio equipment. Another building went to the Winley brothers, who traded here until 1961.
But that's not my
It is a sesame. I'm only drinking halves.
Well, this will be my last time I'm going to drink. Paper calendar. It's generic. I do too.
Roman Chelmsford was focused on the Moulsham Street area, which is this street here, and the northern part of the street, as far as Springfield, is known as Roman Road, well into the 20th century. Excavations reveal the evolution of this settlement. It appears to originate with the establishment of a fort, perhaps following the defeat of the Boudica revolt in AD 61, straddling the London to Colchester Road and guarding the river crossing. This was abandoned in AD 70, and a new settlement developed based upon the elements of the fort layout, which served as an official road station, providing for the needs of travellers. Expansion and extensive replanning of this small town took place between AD 120 and 150. This included the building of a mansion with an official precinct which covered a large area set back from the southeast of the main road. This impressive structure had its own bathhouse and met the needs of officials and others on the road, having some accommodation and administration. There were also substantial earthwork defences around the core of the town, a temple precinct, which we'll see in a minute, and a timber buildings along the main internal roads. These served as shops, domestic dwellings and workshops, there being evidence found for a range of local industries, including the workings of horn, bronze, iron and pottery manufacturing. The 3rd and 4th century saw the town decline and building plots were gradually abandoned.
What?
I'm listening to every word John
I am too. I'm slowly edging this way.
You didn't have to come.
Oh, I love you and I'm enjoying this. Don't get me wrong. Just because I have a sense of humor, Josh.
Is that what you call it?
Yes, I'm hysterical. I'm enjoying this thoroughly.
A lot of this would have been 1600s, 1700s. That pub is 1600s.
Because that's Elizabethan. With the, or like Shakespeare's time,
Give,
right?
give, or,
Because of the-
give or take, yeah.
'cause it's got the wood thing and... Let's go faster.
Well, we're going to come to one of the oldest ones in a minute, which is this one here, which is 42 Moulsham Street.
42. But you said originally this was called the Roman.
Roman Road or London Road.
Oh, because this was the old London Road. That one up there was the new one.
So these two shops, yeah. So these two here
Right?
were built in the late 15th century, but were extended and altered into the 16th. So notice how the front of the shops overhang?
Yep. I made them a little bigger. New facade. Wow. And I'm assuming there might be living spaces above.
Yeah, so it's usually be a shop on the ground and flats above.
I like the shape to it. I assume it's a newer building.
It must be, yeah. It looks new.
Or it's an old one that they screwed up. Remodeled.
Just don't stop
was
one.
my old bedroom. Wood was a bathroom.
I mean, Mum might find out what this building is if she didn't wander off, but this was the Salvation Army Citadel. This was the Salvation Army Citadel. You can see the remnants almost of the Salvation Army logo above. That's exactly the idea. Yep, you've got it. You've got it.
I figured it out.
So this here is Elim, I don't know, church. And under the building, when it was built in 1968, they discovered a Roman butcher's and evidence of decorative hornwork. So we're right in the heart of Roman Chelmsford. We're going to have another half in that pub there as I tell the story of Marconi, but let's pause here. So this is the site of the Hall Street Waterworks. The Chelmsford Local Board of Health was established in 1850, so just after all of this land was bought up. And this site was developed as the Waterworks, originally called Mildmay Yard, in 1853. It took years to find the necessary supply for the artisan well, and the street was built around the work. With a 120,000 gallon reservoir of brick and cement with a galvanised iron roof dug into the local Board of Health's yard. The pumping station and boiler house survive in good condition and can be viewed in the car park of the new housing. The original street was built in 1858 by John Hall of Coggeshall to house the workers of his new silk mill, which we'll come to in a minute. A few of the original Hall Street houses survive and can be seen opposite the car park, numbers 10 through 15. John Hall built the manager's house between the mill and the buildings, which survives of the Waterworks site, and survives today's Alfred Cottage, which is just there. We'll see that in a moment. Samuel Courtauld and Company used the building as a silk mill, which included boiler and engine houses, although these have now been demolished. W.G. Wenley and Sons used the buildings recorded by a small plaque in the wall close to Alfred Cottage, and that's the same company that bought some of the ironworks just around the corner. So we can see the... This was the old pumping house, this building here, which is someone's house, so don't
Knock on the door.
don't knock on the door. Or,
Peek in the window.
yeah, it's, as I say, it's someone's house, but it
That's
was...
something too.
Yeah, it was these two buildings.
Okay. Let's take a picture from here. Beautiful, isn't it?
That's an old pumping house, isn't it? So it's probably...
I think it could be modern. I assume it's supposed to be a cross.
A show we have here, Grand Designs.
Did you see this
Is
melody?
it, just 1 second, Jerry, answering your question. Is it a competition?
No, no.
This is the Marconi Wireless Telegraph Company Limited Works. The mill closed in 1863. Courtauld of Braintree, who survived the disaster, ran the mill from 1865 until 1892. It then became Mrs. Wensley's furniture storage depot, speaking again back to the Wensleys we were talking about earlier. The building's novel and significant role was to begin 6 years later. The name of Gorman Marconi is associated throughout the world with the invention of wireless. He built and tried out his first wireless telegraph sets at his home in Bologna, Italy. As he found an official school there, he came to London in 1896 with his Irish mother, bringing him with his equipment. He patented his system in June 1896, the first wireless patent, at just the age of 22. He demonstrated his wireless system publicly with the generous assistance of the post office, and a company was formed in 1897 to use his patents with the Wireless Telegraph Signal Company, later changed to Marconi's Wireless Telegraph Company Limited in 1901, and to Marconi Limited Company in 1963. The company needed a factory, and in December 1898 they leased Mrs. Wensley's furniture store here to be the world's first wireless factory. Here were established the Little Spark wireless sets for the Royal Navy from 1900 and for merchant ships and great liners. Parts were made for the first transatlantic test using a new high-power station at Hofflew in Cornwall to send out a signal that Marconi heard in his earphones in Signal Hill in Newfoundland on 12th December 1901. That signal was the first step towards commercial transatlantic wireless service in 1908. Research in those days was carried out at experimental stations at Poole Harbour and at Broomfield. Broomfield's just north of here, which is east. Morse code was used in those early services. As the income was low, they diversified into motor car ignition coils, X-ray apparatus, and scientific committee. By 1911, however, business improved greatly under a new managing director, Godfrey Isaacs. And soon his factory was overloaded, and it spread across Hall Street into a plot where a 200-foot steel mast had been erected in 1909, where the where the Hall Street Methodist Church now stands, as we saw a moment ago. Double shifts were worked in the factory to make wireless gear for exports to the four corners of the globe, the Amazon Basin, Thailand, and South Africa and India, to both sides of the Balkan War in 1912 and even to the cable companies, Marconi's greatest competitors. All of the great Atlantic liners were fitted with them: Lusitania, Mauretania, Baltic, Olympic, and the Titanic. In the summer of 1912, the workmen left Wall Street for new premises in New Street. Research work continued in the huts across the street under the tall masts and wall work, which soon to follow. Following Marconi's vacating the Wall Street building in 1912, it reverted to being a furniture store warehouse until 1949, where it was taken over by British Rail Transport. When the organisation was denationalised, in 1958, the premises was bought by another transport company, Pickford's. They sold it to Essex Water Company and it became their head office in 1985. The plaque records the Essex Water Company. This building was opened in 1892 as the Essex Water Company by Sir Robert Telford, CBE DL, chairman of the Marconi Water Company Limited. Essex Water and Suffolk Water Companies merged in the early 1990s to become Essex and Suffolk Water. When they moved out, buildings stood empty for a number of years while planning permission was sought for the new commercial use of its greater listed building. Attempts were made to use the site as a Marconi Museum. The attempts failed and the building is now in commercial use, so judging by the for let sign out front. So the building over there, built on the site of W&T John warehouses, where they stored, sorted and packed wool, which is why the pub's called the Wool Pack. Now you know. So on the left here was the site of the original Quaker meeting house in Chelmsford, used between 1792 and 1824. However, Quakers have been meeting earlier in Chelmsford, but it's been private homes since 1656. And on this side was a tannery established in 1788 by George Clapham. A commemorative stone is shown at the museum about this, and in 1934, we'll see this in a moment if we keep going up here, the Ritz Cinema, which is built where the Odeon currently is built on the same site as, was designed by Robert Crombie, and so that's all built on the site of an old tannery. The Chelmsford Star Cooperative has occupied this site since 1880, the society having been formed in 1867. The new building, which houses the Quadrant department store, was built in 1973. On the right, which you'll see in a moment, is the Regent, built in 1912. It was in use up to 1960s for shows, plays, pantomimes, as well as cinema and a bingo hall.
Oh, that little one there. Nice.
The site had previously been occupied by the Cross Keys Inn, opened in the 15th century as the Catherine Wheel.
Dad's friend, Dave and Monica, they talk about people doing that.
You see all the stuff they've pulled up, Mum? So,
Wait.
okay.
I feel terrible. Well, in the United States, they'd probably be dragging guns out. Oh, the Tesco.
This space here
Yes. On the left side.
stood the old county jail from 1777. A new prison was fully in use in Springfield, which again is a bit east of here, by 1828. Though prisoners continued to be housed here until as late as 1846. The old jail was the first home of the museum, and the governor, T.C. Neal, offered the parlour to the Chelmsford Philosophical Society to accommodate objects collected by members. The building was demolished in 1859, and the site was used as a depot and armoury of the West Essex Militia. Hence this area being known as Barrack Square.
Oh, okay.
Now looking to this bridge, a bridge has been here since the Roman times. In 1100, Maurice, Bishop of London, built a bridge that was replaced in 1372. This bridge survived until 1787, when the current bridge was erected to the design of John Johnson, county surveyor from 1782 to 1823, who also built Shire Hall, which we'll see later.
Okay.
Look for the date on the keystone, noting its opening on the 14th of January 1788. Note that the balusters are made from an artificial ceramic stoneware called Code Stone, made by Mrs. Elizabeth Code of Lambeth. This is one of the oldest still existing landmarks in the town. And look up. I got a knife there.
I was looking for the keystone. Is that usually at the peak?
Yes, it'll be on here somewhere. And I'm looking, this building here is called Cater House. Yeah, built in 1971, it housed one of Chelmsford's first supermarkets. On this site previously stood a Wesleyan Methodist church. The foundation stone for that was laid in 1897. And before that, the Cock Inn was there, dating from the 15th century. The Cock Inn was a large pub with 20 hearths, and it was converted into 2 houses in 1759, but then demolished in 1897 to make way for the Methodist church.
So the first grocery store, where the British Heart Foundation is
Yes,
now?
that building, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the whole ground floor.
yeah. There's a blue plaque there.
Can I go see it?
Yep, to Thomas Watts. He was a Billericay linen draper condemned for not saying mass and for holding secret religious meetings during the reign of the Catholic Queen Mary. Right, Thomas Watts was burnt at the stake, 10 June 1555, for his Protestant faith, trusting for the salvation in Christ alone. I also like the fact that the plaque is still pointedly making a point that the Catholics are wrong.
Well, we know that.
So on the right where Barclays is now, previously was stood a Woolworths, but before that was a King's Head pub, which was demolished in 1931 for the shop. But the pub was originally known as the Boar's Head, had a large tap room, a bar, 2 parlours, a market room, 5 bedrooms, a soldier's room, a 30-capacity coach house. It also featured an orchard, which later became a hop garden, then later still a meadow. It would have been the largest pub in town. Almost opposite, just kind of over there, would have been the Queen's Head, formerly known as the Wagon and Horses, and later known as the Ship, demolished in 1970. It was owned by the Baddow Brewery and then Charrington's. It had a tap room, bar, parlour, market room, 3 bedrooms, a bunk room, 3 attics, a sitting room, and another attic still. Yes, so these would have been 2 huge pubs and inns. Corner stood Black Boy Inn, which is also served as a post office, as this was on the main road, obviously, from London to Colchester, so this was the main road.
Right. Now it's closed to traffic completely and just a pedestrian.
So in the 1760s, Arthur Young described it as clean but dear, as inexpensive.
Oh.
And in 1818, the auctioneers Chalk and Meggie described it as an inn of the first respectability, with 12 bedrooms, a ballroom, a billiard room, stabling for 45 horses. It had 20 halves and was used by the Beefsteak Club, Tradesmen's Club, and later the Pit Club, as well as hosting plays, balls, and concerts. Charles Dickens stayed there and mentions it in the Pickwick Papers, calling Chelmsford the dullest and most stupid spot on earth.
If they collected money or not, that guy's just pamphlets about. The dullest, most cheapest spot on earth. That's really insulting.
The pub was here from the 15th century, and before that, having one of the homes of the Earls of Oxford. In 1860, the pub was called the Crown, but before that, in 1591, was called the New Inn. And then at some point, it was known as the King and Queen's Arms, while the Sheriff's Prison was in there.
Oh.
It was finally called the Black Boy in 1642. When the railway came to Chelmsford in 1843, the coaching train ended abruptly, and the inn was sold in the 1850s, and the current building was built in 1868 as a temperance hall.
Wow. That's quite a difference.
Yeah. Charles Stanton Gray founded this brewery in 1828, and it was run by the Gray family for over 140 years until its sale in 1974 to pay off inheritance tax. The initial development proposal was for demolition, but a thorough building survey resulted in the site being Grade 2 listed, and the development proposals changing for reuse as retail. A complex of a number of different buildings reflect the various functions needed in beer production, and was built in a U-shape around a central yard. Most of the original buildings survive and are in use as restaurants and shops. Dating from the 19th century, the buildings are a 3-storey malt house where barley was converted into malt, a 4-storey malt house with its doors and windows for hoisting malt into them,
Right.
a 4-storey brew house, a 4-storey bottling plant, another 4-storey malt house, and this bit here was the office building.
Oh. What
was the name of the brewery?
Gray's.
Gray's.
So no, we've been going to all the pubs which are Gray's pubs.
Yep.
This is the original.
Like our family name.
That would have been for hoist, so you can see that would have been the winches and stuff would have been.
Yep, would have been there. And that's why those windows up there
Yep.
probably were.
Probably had
holes for-
much the same
Yep.
setup. Yeah. You know, back along. So this was the site of the Essex Chronicle.
The darker red brick building.
Essex Chronicle.
Well, it's the site of it. It's a sort of here. So the Chelmsford, then the Essex Chronicle. Established in 1764, it's the second oldest business still in operation in the county. I've got here that this is Mansion House, dated from 1754 by Benjamin Pugh, who was a pioneer in midwifery and inoculation against smallpox. It was used as a lodging of the judge when he came to the assizes held at Shire Hall, which is that big building there.
Feeling Mansion House is.
The name Saracen's Head Hotel has been in use since 1539, but the current building dates from the 1700s. It was a meeting place for the turnpike trustees and others, and operated as a posting inn whose boys had a distinctive blue livery, so they were like postmen. Anthony Trollope wrote in the hotel smoking room while here in his role as Inspector General of the Post Office. In the Second World War, the hotel was occupied by the American Red Cross. And now looking at what's now Cafe Nero, this is an elegant 1700s building. Slightly before. Whose windows on the first floor match the tapering of the columns to the door.
Oh, that's really nice, the way those windows are.
Now Shire Hall this building now, was built between 1789 and 1791 on the site of several pubs. It was designed by John Johnson to replace an ancient sessions house where court trials and stuff would have been held. The interior was built in 1936. Note the tablets made from code stone, just like the bridge, representing wisdom, mercy, and justice. So at the top, look. The clock was added in 1887 to commemorate the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria. There in front of the hall used to hold a Sevastopol cannon. That's a big cannon outside the front of the museum. Now that's probably the most historically interesting pub in tavern of all the ones on this route. But it's meant to be a dump, so let's not go there. It's called Bank Chambers.
The tower?
Not that one just yet. We'll touch on that.
Okay.
So that building's said to be haunted by the ghost of Thomas Kidderminster, who was brutally murdered in 1654 when the White Horse Inn stood on this site. On the opposite corner, to the one of the tower,
Okay.
was the first purpose-built police station in Chelmsford, built in 1907.
Wow, they actually made a beautiful building for something so new. It says public office.
So this building is the old post office. And note the 4 monograms, so there, and then up on the drain pipes. So this was built in 1908, and you see the monograms are for King Edward the Seventh, sorry. And yeah, that's that. Let's wander over this way.
So this is the haunted building.
No. This one here.
Okay. This little one?
Yeah. Is of Chief Justice Tyndall, whose name gives this the Tyndall Square. We've talked about Tyndall before. The statue was built in 1851. He was born in Malsham Street, where we were earlier, and educated at Chelmsford Grammar School. The school was first established in 1551 in part of the old friary. It then moved to Duke Street, where it remained until its transfer to Broomfield Road in 1892. And nowadays it's one of the best state schools in the country.
Whoa. Is
And then
it private? Like a private school you pay
it's
for?
a grammar school, so
Grammar school,
selective.
so it's-
And the shopping centre here is on the site of the Chelmsford Corn Exchange, which was built in 1857 to the design of Frederick Chancellor. It was demolished in 1969. Now to come.
This one right here. This is a pretty little.
just there's a plaque for Thomas Hooker, who's the founder of Connecticut. I'll just say, Mum, so there's a plaque there for Thomas Hooker, who founded Connecticut.
Oh, cool.
So he was a lecturer at the well, before this was a cathedral, it was a church. He was a lecturer at the church, and then when they got rid of lecturers at the church during,
Where's the plaque?
sorry,
Where's the plaque?
yeah,
Oh.
there you go. Look, curate of St Mary's, town lecturer, founder of the state of Connecticut, father of American democracy. This is a triangular gravestone. I don't remember, it was 3 women killed in a fire in March 1808.
Oh, no.
So properties on the High Street and Back Street, which is now Tyndall Street, were destroyed.
Prepare for death ere ye retire
Oh.
to rest.
And the
For you know
ladder,
not what a day
she
may
survived
bring
7
forth.
days after being burned. Oh,
And you'll notice here, on the corner of the church, there's a statue of St Peter holding a Yale key, which you can't quite see from here, but he's holding a Yale key as opposed to a normal key. Sorry?
As opposed to a Harvard key.
Yeah, sure. The statue's by T.B. Huckley Jones, and it's facing towards St Peter's Church in Bradwell, which is one of the oldest churches in England. And it was built by St Ced in about the year 400 or 500, using bricks from a Roman fort that was there.
oh yeah, they did utilize what they could find, didn't they?
So this church is dedicated to St Mary, St Peter and St Ced, and it achieved cathedral status in 1914.
Is this section the oldest and first? Or is it just that they did this section in a different stone?
It's a complete mix.
Yeah.
So
That's one thing, when they took something over, they'd change it and alter it, and you'd have the old stuff underneath and the new stuff on top, but even the new stuff is older than dirt.
yeah. So there's been a church here since about 1000, give or take. Bits of that are still here. Most of it is rebuilt in the 1500s.
I'm gonna guess because that's green, it was copper at one time?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing, it's beautiful.
But it's all mix and match. We can go inside because they'll be